Blessings. This is your brother Gabar, and this is IAMFIT Podcast. Man going God's way. Sabbath conversation lesson. Thank you for allowing me to get into your living room. Peace and blessings. Shalom, 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 everyone. Thank you, thank you. Let me bring in my co-host, Brother Rick. What's going on, Captain? How's been your week thus far? Wait a minute. Unmute. Let me unmute your phone because I usually unmute your. I think I could hear you now. But you're down clear. Go ahead.
All right. So Shalom Elder and Shalom family. It was a pretty decent week. I don't go through nothing different than nobody else. We just got to stay buckled down and focus on the Most High. Times ain't gonna get easier, so we got to make sure that we stay grounded and stay focused. And that's all I got.
Well, amen to that. Amen to that. Let's see who's out there. Okay, I see brother New Breed in the house. Peace and blessings, brother. Salute. Watching from the clouds. I know this will be edifying. Well, I hope it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. We have brother Re'an, Yasha Allah. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, family. Okay. Uh, brother Tommy. Okay, Tommy, Shalom, Shalom. Okay, Sister Toy, Shalom, sister. How we doing? Good seeing you guys here because, I would hate to be talking to myself, right? So I wanted to kind of have this conversation today, and I try to not go into titles or words like lesson or teaching or whatever because yes, I was a pastor, I was an elder, yada yada yada, I was teaching, but I don't want people to think that they could not challenge what I'm saying. Um, if you disagree, it's okay. We could share the same room, right? This is my perspective, my history, my experience, my studies that I have come across. And the longer I've been studying, the longer I notice is that the more I realize what I don't know or what more I need to know, right? But I believe that this is something that, it's one of these things that you read something in the Bible and you read it 1,000 times, but you read it a 1,001 and you like, I never noticed this here. Anybody knows this scripture here? You know this was here, right? And you read it 1,000 times and you're like, wait a minute, we have to make shift our thinking. And this is the reason why I felt I wanted to do this conversation, this lesson or my perspective of the Bible, is because um, me coming from the ISUPK when I was in literally 20, I'm 52 years old now, so you do the math. And when I left them in 2001, early 2001, officially, right? I could look back on all the doctrinal things that they got wrong now because certain things they were saying that Christ would have been here by now, right? And the breakdown of Christ coming for the year 2000 came from the book of, I believe, the book of Hosea. So we're gonna go down memory lane today, right? Because love them or hate them, and I'm talking about brothers from the One West community. Um, they have stomped their impact, or they have impact. I think the Christian world or the biblical world or biblical discussion. And I'm in a situation now that I'm reflecting back and I'm looking how the Bible affected my life, right? I remember when I was from One West and I I joined, I was listening to them um around 90, but around 93 I officially joined them. And I remember that within weeks, I would even say before weeks, because they used to preach that before I officially joined, that Christ was coming for the year 2000. And the way they came to this calculation is in the book of Isaiah. Let me try to find. I believe what's the scripture? Hosea. After 2 days, I will revive you. 2 days. Hold on. Oh, sorry. 2 days.
I think Hosea 6:2.
Let's see. Raise. Okay, and the third. Yes, that's it. Okay, so we're gonna go here in a few minutes, but this is I'm gonna kind of give you guys a historical perspective from my history and how and what I experienced in regards being a gentleman that 20 years old, joining this organization. I think Desiree and I, my wife, we just started dating. So this was also new for her. And one of the things I kind of was always thinking immediately when I joined is that they were what are those churches that are always focusing on the end of the world? It's a term for it. That it leaves me, but I remember thinking like I just got here, so Christ is coming by 2000. Well, brother, before the year 2000, because he shortened those days. I was like, oh, so here goes my. I remember that I was heavily training in martial arts, and I was not doing MMA yet, but I was doing kickboxing, Thai boxing, and I was trying to get a belt or a career, that situation. So I was like, there's much more important things than doing that. Christ is coming. So it affected me a little bit, right? And I remember men telling other men, young men, hey, brother, why you going to college? That's the white man's education. Come come to the school. You're going to learn the real truth, right? It was like very anti-social group in regards of, separatists, right? We don't need anything from the white man. We could do everything ourselves. And, at that time, remember, this was in the, early 90s, late 80s, that the civil rights movement was still prominent in our mind. We still had racial issues that was, and racial issues, and also racial leaders or activist leaders that was always reminding us that the system is out to get us. Right? So the reason why I'm saying this, and the reason why I'm going over this, is that religion and the proceed of what the Bible says does affect your lifestyle, and it should. And I don't have a problem with it, but we have to make sure that the way it is affecting us, we are acting and we are moving accordingly to the scriptures. And sometimes we have to be humble and give a door, a crack, a window somewhere to give space that we perhaps could be wrong, right? And if we look at the scriptures that way, sometimes we I think it's a more healthier way approach. Another kind of scenario on you had Christ was coming for the year 2000. Marshall was King David. The 12 apostles was here, reincarnated. Many of the guys that were called the apostles or thought they were apostles, a lot of them passed away. Aria, I think he's supposed to have been John or John, I think it was, because he actually was the one that was good with the supposedly was good. And shout out to him and his family and the work that he did. And I think he tried his best, but a lot of the breakdown came from him. He was like that's why he kind of referred to him, or he had the spirit of John the Revelator, right? So, and for those that are wondering what the book of Isaiah is saying, let me go there real quick and let's dive into this real quick, because I think this lesson class is not to attack anyone necessarily. It's not to make someone feel that are less than, or this is not attacking anybody. This is more like food for thought, right? So back in the days, and I remember this was at least a month in, this breakdown was given to me, and I was like, oh my God, we only got like 8 years left. What's going on, right? So let's read this real quick because I think this is important to know and to understand. All right. And it's one of these things that I want to set the tone. So, brother Rick, if you don't mind, brother, just and now the response to God's rebuke. Okay. So this is now Hosea, to kind of give you a backdrop. All right. Hosea is a prophet that was sent to the northern tribe mostly. God was upset of the northern tribe, the 10 tribes, and because they gave themselves to idols, they were the ones that began to create another temple outside of Jerusalem where God put his name there. And they began to create groves in high places and worshiping Baal. So God was pissed. So, but that's usually covered in the first half of the book of Hosea, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then now is going into him restoring Israel, right? And as everybody knows, one day to the Lord is like 1,000 years like one day to the Lord, right? So this is the breakdown, which make perfect sense to me, right? At that time, 20 years old, wet behind the ears, I was like, my God, these men they are the prophet of God. No one has ever shown me this, right? And I was right. No one has ever shown me that, right? So let's read real quick, Brother Rick, if you don't mind, and let's see if we could dive into this.
All right. Hosea chapter 6, verses 1. Come and let us return unto the Most High, for he hath torn and he will heal us. He has smitten and he will bind us up.
Right. So now the introduction to this conversation is that God is telling Hosea to encourage Israel to come back to the Lord, and he's about to give us a time span when he's going to do it. Right? So let's read.
After 2 days will he revive us, and the third day he will raise us up, and he shall live in his sight.
Okay,
and
so
we shall live in his sight.
Yeah, and we shall live in his sight. So I was like, what? After 2 days will he revive us, right? Now, I'm doing some research on this, on what is the understanding of this scripture, prophetically speaking, in the Jews, from the Jewish, or not, I said the Jewish, that's because these people are imposter, but from the Hebraic perspective, right? What was their, with the ancient Jews were counting down the days, meaning the 2 days, right? They will be restored, because it says after 2 days will he revise us, right? Now, one day to the Lord, and that's the scripture how, so this is from a prophetic perspective, this is not 2 physical days, like a day of the week. These are actual, 1 day is 1,000 years, 2 days is 2,000 years. So from that time in the book of Hosea, when the book of Hosea was written, hey, Brother Rick, if you could look that up real quick, if you don't mind, right?
I got you.
Because I believe it was written before the 10 tribes got kicked out of Israel or Samaria, or the Assyrians took them out. So I know it was like a 5, so it's just probably 600 years before Christ. What do you
Yeah.
got, Brother Ricky?
AI review overview says the book of Hosea is believed to have been written between 760 and 720 BCE during the period when the northern kingdom of Israel was facing threats and ultimately destruction from the Assyrian Empire. Hosea's ministry likely spanned from the reign of King Jeroboam II of Israel to the fall of the northern kingdom. Some scholars suggest that the book may have been compiled, Salakia, and edited after his death, possibly before the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BCE.
Right, because most scholars, the way they date stuff is that it's specifically in the Bible, because the Bible prophesies a lot of things that came to pass. So what they do is they give a window of opportunity, a window of before and after. So that usually say it happening after the event, because people cannot prophesy things. This is science. We deal with evidence and facts, and what we could prove. So in the scholarly world, when they date these things, they usually try to put it after the event, because they it's like reading back. Because if they admit it was written before, they have to admit that the Bible has some supernatural elements to it, right? So after 2 days, will I revive you? So obviously that didn't happen 2 days after Isaiah wrote this book, or this scroll to the people. He read it to the people, right? So most scholars agree that this is talking about a millennium day, 1,000 years, right? And it says, now notice it's after 2 days, meaning that he's going to live or be revealed in the third day, but after 2 days. So in the third 1,000 year, or the beginning or the end of 2,000 years, right? And then after the 2,000 years are over, on the third day will he, in the third day, he will rise us up, right? So after 2 days, he will revise us. Now, the word after 2 days can be also say on the third day, because it's after 2 days, right? So, and when you see those little two colons after the word us, is referring to the next verse is expounding on what we just read. The same, kind of like the same thing twice, right? After 2 days, will he revise us? In the third day, he will rise us up, and we shall live in his sight. That means he came here. This is the second coming. This is the revival of Israel. So let's do some math. So in the not in the third 1,000 years, but 3,000 years into the future, that is when God is going to revise us. So let's do some math. So this was about 600 years before Christ, Brother Ricky. That's what it says, give or take?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
give or take.
600, and then 600 years later after Christ, or 400 years later, that will be in the year 400 AD. That will be the 1,000 year mark, and then from the 2,000, from that year 400 BC to 1400. I mean AD, 1400, 400 AD to 1400 AD is 2,000 years. So we've been living within the third 1,000 year from that prophecy since the year of 1400 AD. Would that make sense? Right? So within the third, so for this prophecy to be right, so right now, so we got 1,400. Let's see here. What 1,400 to what's another 1,000 years? So 1,400 will be 2,000. I'm bad with math. So if you add 1,000 to 1,400, years will be what? That will be 600, 2000, the year 2024, in the year 2400. Would that be,
Yeah.
that makes,
It'd be like what I came up with, Elder, was this, because you gotta think about, okay, they say the book of Hosea is believed to have been written between 760 and 720 BCE.
mhm.
So to marginalize that, we're gonna cut that in between and just say 740.
Okay.
And if we do the math, let's get in the mindset of One West. I know that I could most likely be wrong because I wasn't there, and when they
Right.
started, I probably wasn't even born then.
Right.
So if you add on 2,000 years, that'd be the year 2740. But what is the issue with that is this: they say we are looking at a 300 years that they may have added or taken away that
Right.
don't exist because of them trying to play with the time. So we're really looking at the year 2440.
Yeah.
But then you got to also look at, they said in another writing or something like that, there's like another 200 years that was added or subtracted as well.
Yeah, we have to take that into consideration. Yes.
So then if let's just take away another 200, that'll be the year 2240. So, and then whatever math they may have had at that time or whatever knowledge they went by at the time, they looked at it as, okay, most likely we're still in the year at that time, maybe 1600, because a lot of, according to other places and things I've researched, we're still in the year really like the year 1700 or something like that.
Right. Well, I think it's yes, but I think the most accurate calendar, I think, is the Ethiopic calendar. It's pretty good, and they got us. I think the 17. Their year is like 17 something, 17, and then the Jewish people also has a good calendar, but they have it under 6,000 years, like 500 and 211 days. 11 years, something like that. So we're but what this is saying, no, but I got this. But yes, we don't know the time and season we are exactly, because I even have arguments that we are still 1,000 years within Christ's existence. That a whole 1,000 years was added. So that's another argument altogether. I don't agree or disagree. I'm just saying this is a different argument. There's arguments that we're even closer to Christ's time than we think that we are, right? Like 1,000 years off, right? Not 2,000. But regardless what time we in, what this scripture was talking about is that Christ is going from 3,000 years into the future. That's when the Father is going to send the Messiah, or God's going to revive us, right? In 3,000 years into the future, and it says we will live in His sight, right? So let's continue reading.
Hosea 6:3. Then shall we know, if we follow on to know the Most High, His going forth is prepared as the morning, and He shall come unto us as the rain, as the latter and former rain unto the earth. Mm-hmm. O Ephraim, what shall I do unto thee? O Judah, what shall I do unto thee? For your goodness is as a morning cloud, and as the early dew, it goeth away. Therefore, have I hewed them by the prophets? I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and thy judgments are as the light that goeth forth.
Right. So the reason why One West it wasn't this script, this prophecy didn't come to pass, or this prophecy is not real or true, is that they miscalculated, right? Because the calculation that the Romans keeping versus the Hebraic is two different calculations, and then they added years. So the year 2000 was not technically the year 2000, right? So that was, and we are not 100% sure if we are even in the year 2000 at all. We may be 3, 4, 500 years off. I think it'll be much further, and that would make sense that Satan will try to hide that, because if he could show or prove to the people, or convince the people rather, that we are much further on in history, then that would time out the prophecy, meaning we will pass the prophecy timeline, and then that would discredit the Bible, right? So why I'm going here today, right? Why this is important? Because this, I remember when I was in my 20s, this affected everyone that I knew within the Hebrew Israelite community. Don't buy the house. It's all going to go through flame, because they believe that the same breakdown that, Israel United in Christ, IAMFIT, even GOCC in regards to Iran is going to attack America. And that's when that happened. At that time, when we was in One West, we would believe that the chariots of the Most High is going to come and beam us up and deliver. And we're going to see the destruction. We're going to look back, and we're going to see the destruction of our enemies, right? So we don't have to do anything outside. You just keep the commandments of God, do some street preaching, waking our people who they are, and God is going to take care of everything, right? Which, it's, I'm not saying it was, they did what they did the best with what they had. However, though, they were wrong. And the reason why I want to have this conversation, right now, you have people within the Christendom world, the vocab of the world, the warrior of God is another God. There's a lot of Christian apologists out there now engaging in conversation with the Hebrew Israelites. And I remember one thing that I remember back in the days is that when I was in One West, is that Christians couldn't hold water to us. I mean, they couldn't handle us in regards to biblical understanding, because most Christians don't read the Bible. Now, because the Israelite community has gotten so numerous, they have to respond to them now. It's like you can avoid them, right? They're part of the American experience now. Oh, you heard the Hebrew Israelite? Yeah. This guy in the corner always bothering me, calling me the devil, right? It's like, right? It's part of like, they're part of the apple pie experience. Like, everybody kind of knows them. It's not like back in the days. I remember that if you was not in New York, Philly, or certain areas, and I think they started, heading to, we had like different members in California. There was an East Coast thing mostly, right? So if you speak to somebody in Detroit, if you speak to somebody in North Carolina, South Carolina, like Israelite, who? I never heard of these guys, right? Now everybody knows them. And because of that, and because of YouTube, and now everything is recorded, right? It's like when you and I were kids, right? We have one picture of granddad. One picture of him was in the military. Another picture of his wedding, right? Or grandma, right? You have like few pictures, right, of your grandparents. We are going to be the parents or the grandparents, if, into the future, 30, 40, 50 years into the future, that we're going to have pictures of everything that we did. Because everybody's taking selfies, right? This is me in graduation. This is me the day after graduation. This is me my first day of job. This is when I got fired. This is when what I mean? It's like every experience is recorded these days, right? It's like a thing. And maybe not my generation, and I don't think you're that way either, but because I think I kind of like my generation didn't really, like my daughter's generation younger, everything is itself. Everything, we have to record this. Let's take a picture because we're here. We have to, it's like if it's not recorded, it didn't happen kind of scenario, right? So the reason why I'm saying that is because now you have videos out there of people making fun of the One West organization, groups that they are street preaching video of that saying this Christ is coming for the year 2000, nuclear destruction, there's all going to be gone before the year 2000. And then now they're using it as like, look, these are false prophets. So therefore, the reason why I was compelled to have this conversation with my audience and the people, and I hope that all the leaders are listening to this conversation, and please send a copy or a link to them and say, hey, what do you got things about this? Because I think we don't want to repeat the history that we experience with this thing with the year 2000. I know you was not involved, Brother Ricky, but I'm talking to people from my generation because although I do agree in the book of Hosea, right? But I disagree in the interpretation how Arya came about because he was limited in understanding of a lot of history that they perhaps would not privy to, right?
Right.
And now people are using that against them, right? So why are we here? Why are we having this conversation? Why is this important? Because we're going to focus on the doom of Babylon, right? And I'm to the point right now with prophecy, I'm not going to take an absolute, no negotiation approach to it. The only thing I'm going to take no approach to is, of course, the commandment of God and Christ being the Messiah. That's not negotiable. But prophecies have to be constantly negotiable because we have to be humble and say we probably are getting things wrong. We probably have 80%. We probably need another 10%. We probably need 5%. We got everything right. It's just one little thing that is miscalculating everything, right? And the reason why is because for many years I was brainwashed, or I was, told and constantly repeated that the means are going to destroy Babylon. Right? We read this this previous show because it was a preview of what we're going to be discussing here. But let's read this real quick because I remember reading this for the first time when I was in my 20s, right? And I was like, wow, things are about to go down, right? Let's go to let's go to verse 1, and we're going to skip down and to kind of set the premise. So, Brother Rick, if you could start from the top.
Isaiah 13:1. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did see, Salakia. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The noise of the multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together.
So
the Most High.
So this was a introduction. So let's go back to 1993, 94, 95. I would have been, Jordan was 20, so I would have been like 23. I'm reading this. Oh, this is being read to me by the elders. He has a reader and he's expounding. And he's saying, well, see, brother, the noise of the multitudes, he's talking about the military, right? He's just talking about the army is going to come and gather themselves, right? Like a great people, a tumult, noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustered the Lord of hosts musters the host of the battle. So I was like, oh, snap. America's going to get conquered. Oh, my God. Okay. It's going to happen. This is prophecy right here. And this is true. It is prophecy, and it's going to happen. Right? But I believe I'm convinced that this is specifically addressing literally ancient Babylon, but spiritually future Babylon. We're going to go into this, right? Start at verse 6, if you don't mind, brother. Right. Let's start at verse 5. Yeah, let's start at verse 5.
Okay. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Most High, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land.
So see, brother, Iran is on the other side of the world, brother. They're going to come from the other side and destroy us, brother. Iran is the most, and I remember they used to always prepped up Iran as like They are, don't sleep on Iran. They have a great army, military, and even back then, the nuclear bombs or nuclear weapons in Iran was always a thing that we don't want Iran to get a weapon, right? And so there's nothing new in the sun. It's just new generation kind of continue the same thing. Because even you go into nothing, even Netanyahu, there's a video montage going back to 1979 when he was like 28, and he just came off the military and he kind of started beginning his political career. He was talking about Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. Iraq cannot have a nuclear bomb. We have to watch out for that. So that was even back then when I was a kid. So what you guys are hearing now is nothing new. That's why sometimes I look at these news and these things like flat earth. That's nothing new. That was around when I was a kid too. It just goes away and comes back. So for everybody now who is like a millennium or a Gen Z or whatever, this is the first time you're hearing about this, right? About the flat earth. If you heard about this in this generation or you heard about one, but it's nothing new in the sun. These arguments and these talking points was back then, going back to 70s and 80s, right? So me reading this, it's everything's going to flame. They're going to conquer this country. So this is not planned for the future. And this is the reason why understanding prophecy correctly is essential, because you may be wasting your time wasting your time in not preparing for the future. And one thing that I remember back then that I felt like, well, okay, I believed it wholeheartedly. But then after I was around 1997, 98, I began to look around and say, I don't think Christ is coming for the year 2000. We ain't ready. There's no way. I started kind of like, let me see. And, and eventually I kind of was convinced they were wrong. I did not know how to interpret that scripture or how they're wrong. I just looked around me in the state of our condition and realized there's no way the 144,000 are here. We don't have 104,000 members. We don't have 12,000 Gadites. We don't have the 12,000. You know what I'm saying? The majority was Benjamin, Levi, and Judah, and some, Simeon, some Ephraim, sprinkle of the Latinos tribe. Other than that, that was it. I was like, we ain't ready. So that was my only evidence, objective, right? I didn't know how to go say Elder Aria, or back then it's called High Priest Aria. I think we wrong about this breakdown because I did this research. I just looked around and I said, I don't think we're ready, right? And so, but when I was reading this, I didn't know how to say, okay, if we're not ready, America is still going to be destroyed. I do believe that. I don't believe that we're wrong about that. However, though, I don't think it's going to happen with 2000. Matter of fact, it's probably going to be a few years from the future. Therefore, what does that mean? Now I know that we're not in the year 2000, right? Now I know we don't know the time in year and so forth, so on. So therefore, now that will be my explanation to say we're probably still having, we just probably just came into the 3,000 year and so forth, so on, right? And because within that day, he will reveal himself to us. He will revise us and we will live in his sight from the time of that prophecy. So I'm saying that to say this, because why back then, outside of you not, guys dropping out of dropping out of college, that did happen. They probably had, some dream in starting a business or something. And once they came to this information, like, well, start a business, everything's going to blow up in 8 years, right? So it affected us, I don't know, economically, because we wasn't planning to grow. We were looking to grow and preach the gospel, but we wasn't like, let's buy some land, let's start some businesses, let's grow the church and the wealth and let's start. We didn't own our own building; we rent, right? So we was just maintaining until we get our deliverance. That was the mindset. So it does affect it now. There are some churches like GOCC, and there's others, GOCC is not the only one, that believe that we must leave America, aka Babylon, physically, not spiritually. Back then, we believed this is talking about, brother, you got to leave Babylon spiritually, brother. And they'll give you like 15 chapters or scriptures that, to prove their point, and they just bombard you to say this is spiritual, this is not literal, right? I disagree. I do agree with spiritual, but it also have to be literal, right? However, though, if you believe that America is going to be destroyed, and then you believe that the Persian means, which is Iran today, is going to destroy America, what do you think you're going to be looking at? You're going to be looking at conflict with Iran, right? Now, let's just say the Bible says, I will send Gog and Magog to Babylon to destroy it. Or I will send the Ishmaelites, right, to destroy, or whatever nation they were called back then as a nation, right? Whatever you could choose, the Moabites, right? And would destroy Babylon, right? And that, one West believed that the Moabites are the Chinese and Japanese, right? So Ron, what's that brother from Hebrews to Negro, Ron Dalton?
Ron Dalton.
Yeah. He said that it is important for us to know who are the nations mentioned in the Bible today, because if you get it wrong, you're going to be looking at the wrong nation. Wrong nation, right prophecy, wrong nation. You are tagging a prophecy to the wrong nation, which is an important point, right? So the reason why I'm saying this is that the more I look at what's going on geopolitically, I'm walking away, me personally, right? And I'm okay to be wrong, but I'm walking away looking at the conflict specifically and regard as a sign, as like a thing that must happen before the second coming. Iran and America conflict. I'm no longer looking at that, and I think we got it wrong. And I believe we got it wrong because, yes, the Bible, and this is for me, I would say for me, but for some, can be frustrating because the book of Isaiah, he was dealing with the people of Israel at that time. And he was prophesying things that's going to happen to them in the future. And sometimes you have prophecy, they have dualities. Did the Medes conquer Babylon, ancient Babylon? Yes. Did he prophesy that? Yes. But in the book of Revelation, specifically chapter 18, it talks about a whore, the great Babylon, that they're going to be destroyed and burned with fire, right? So we combine both scriptures. So we said everything that happened to ancient Babylon is going to happen to future Babylon. It makes sense. I'm not saying that's not an intelligent approach to it, but sometimes we have to digest it differently. And sometimes we have to start looking at the scripture and say, okay, maybe we're missing something, right? So I want to just go down here because let me start at verse 13.
All right. Therefore, I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of the Most High of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. And it shall be as the chaste roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up, that shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword.
Uh-huh.
Their children also
So that's the
shall
whole.
be.
And I remember there was don't be joined unto them. Don't be dealing with their schools and their, just work, maintain your home, and wait for the deliverance of the Lord. Right.
Right.
And I took this. I was like, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And reading this now, and it still makes sense, right? That this could be applied to America, and it can. But there's a caveat, and we're gonna go into that. Let's read.
16. Their children also shall be dashed into pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished.
So, the picture that was painted to me was that the Iranian people. Now, it's not only going to be the Iranian, but they're going to be leading this fight. And what I was remember being told, it's going to be like some Islamic union or collective fighting against America, right? And of course, there's going to be internal warfare where things are going to collapse, different things are going to be happening. The dollar's going to collapse. A lot of things are going to happen. The market of the beast is going to be implemented, and that's another thing too. We have to take a look at the market of the beast, because the market of the beast may not be implemented here in America. It may be implemented in Europe when the 10 horns receive the power. I'm looking into it. That's probably going to be a lesson next week. And I want people to understand, with my research, I'm open to be corrected if you could show me otherwise. So just this is not like an absolute. I'm just doing research to see if I could throw something in the table that you guys could maybe say, this is, maybe we have to consider this, right? So, but all of this was scary when I was a young man. The children also shall be dashed in pieces before their eyes. Dang, I don't want to be involved with that, right? And then what they were saying, that while all of that is happening, we're going to see thousands fall on our right side, 10,000 fall on our right, but not one hair will be touched. We're going to be good. So everybody's going to be, racial fighting, political fighting. We're going to be in the middle of World War III. We're going to be all kinds of crazy, chaotic scenario. And the One West camp was saying, you have to just stay home, because you just got to look out for the window until your Messiah comes to deliver you, right? And it was a very comforting breakdown, because you don't have to do anything unnecessarily. You don't have to flee. You don't have to prepare. And anytime you show any signs of preparing or making any preparation, they challenge your faith. Hey, brother, you got no faith in the Most High, bro. What you doing? You stacking up food, or you moving to another country because you seen the sign. You got no, because that was the whole thing. It's like, that's going to be our last challenge of faith when we seeing the world turning upside down. We're like, we're good. Christ, you need faith. So subconsciously, it was a very effective breakdown. It was a very effective and attractive breakdown, right? So I'm taking you guys back, how I felt in my experience, right? And so now, when I read this, the next verse, right, verse 17, and here's the title, right? Babylon will fall to the means. Oh my God! I mean, the Blue Blood Bible didn't exist back then, probably not, but we could clearly see that this is like, when I read this, I was like, oh my God, this is prophecy, right? Let's read this, brother. Read verse 17.
Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as far gold, they shall not delight in it.
So meaning the breakdown was this: they cannot take a bribe. America is going to try to bribe them, cut a deal, give them off of the money, and they're like, no, right? So because and this is important. Behold, I, this is the Most High speaking, will stir up the means. That's very important. So this is God putting in their hearts that like they don't want to have any peace treaty with Babylon. No gold, no silver could be given to them, no riches. But we associated that with Babylon with America today in the means with Iran. Right? So let's continue reading.
Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye shall not spare children.
Right, but there was some. We don't have to worry about that because the Most High is going to put. He's going to put a hedge on us. We're going to protect. So I remember, Nick. I remember in the academy we had the trooper program, and then you have to do some exercise and do some martial arts every Sunday. We should train and all that, and but that was like more like physical help. I don't remember ever the elders of the church talking about, get food, get, protect yourself if you need, but, no conversation because that's the spirit of fear. If you do that. So psychologically, it affected me, right? For a few years. After a while, I'd be like, I don't know yet, right? And I was always a critical thinker. I'm always thinking and analyzing, rethinking and so forth, so on. Especially if something doesn't feel right to me. If something is off logically. It doesn't, logic is important to me, and something has to be logical for me to understand it. And just because I don't understand doesn't mean it's not logical, but I need to understand it, and if I don't understand it, I seek, right? So this was scary, right? Let's continue.
And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah.
And this was another breakdown. There was another breakdown, as if God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's like, oh, brother, see, Sodom and Gomorrah today, brother, is desolate, right? It's only sand, and experts have looked into that area and looked like it got hit with some hot lava type of heat, right? Proving the Bible, and all of that is today. All that's I concur. So, and that's the reason why I was like, this has to be talking about America, and it has to be talking about this right now, right? So let's continue reading, brother, if you don't mind.
It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there.
So when you look at, let me show you guys real quick. How does ancient Babylon looks today? Usually it's just, you still got some ruins, people sometimes visit. You could go into different area, you have different websites that could show you what things used to be like or what was placed there years ago. You still have some standard, but you could tell in that there was like a great heat because you could tell that the rocks are like kind of melting into the building structure. This is what some people believe. This is Lot's wife. Let me show you another picture that some people believe this looks like is a suspicious looking erect. And all of this can only be developed or formed by great heat. So that's what scholars say. Some say a volcano or asteroid destroyed it. They debate because obviously they don't believe in the story of the Bible. So they try to, but they do agree that it was burned with fire. It was great heat, right? These are another views. This is a guy who's a Christian, probably went there, and he's prophesizing to verify, look what God did to this nation. Because you're right, Sodom and Gomorrah has not yet been inhabited, and I think I gotta find out why that is. It could, I gotta find out, but it hasn't been, inhabited, right? Yeah, and it's the archaeologists are still there looking into the rebel and see what's going on and what happened and who did it and when and all that stuff. So, but clearly we could see in the Bible this was a prophecy that it came to pass. Right? This is something that we could clearly see that came to pass, right? So
Right.
I was like, okay. So if this is what's going to happen to America, thank God, he's going to send his chariots to deliver us, right? So all this affected me, right? Verse 20.
It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there.
Mm-hmm.
And the wild beast.
So I believe when the Bible talks about that neither the Arabians will pitch their tent there. Arabians, right? What's the Hebrew word there for Arabian? Arabia mixed. Arab. Okay, the Arabs, right? Because the word Arab, Arabian, comes from the word Hebrew word mixed. Mixed people. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So it's just talking about the mixed people, right? Of that land, the Shemitic people of that land, right? So this affected me, right? And the reason why I wanted to kind of have this conversation, right? And finish. And brother Ricky, you could maybe finish up where you left off because you just finish off, if you don't mind.
The last verse, the 22nd. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged.
You see, brother, 8 years, brother, before the year 2000, Rock. That affected people, man. And they were wrong. And it's okay they were wrong. People get things wrong all the time. I mean, there have been thousands, literally thousands, definitely hundreds, from the time of Christ until now, of Christian organization, whether it be Catholic, Protestants, Hebrew Israelites, whatever, Mormons, whatever, have predicted events that did not come to pass and using the Bible as the pretext. And the fact is not that the Bible is wrong, is that their understanding of that prophecy was wrong, right? So that's the reason why we have to give ourselves like a crack window or opportunity, or we cannot be absolute about prophecy, right? And and especially us within the Hebrew Israelite community, right? That all eyes on us. Everything that we get wrong is going to be magnified to the 10th power. If you're supposed to be the Lord's people, why are you getting these things wrong, right? So, and this message is to those brothers that are looking at the Persian Medes or Iran as a sign of the end of the world, right? Because maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Let's go into Revelations, the last book of the Bible, right? So we were in we were in, let me go here. Okay. We were in Isaiah 13 when it talks about Babylon will fall to the hands to the Medes, right? But then we go to let me go here. Or the judgment day of the Lord, the prophecy about Babylon, right? So all this is referring to Babylon, but it was also referring to Babylon is the book of Revelation. So you would think that you cannot just simply take half the prophecy or a portion of the prophecy and totally don't even address the other portion. And I would think that this particular chapter in the book of Revelations was the last book of the Bible, chapter 17, talking about the destruction of Babylon, that we should say, okay, let's take this and let's read this and let's add this into the understanding. But I believe that we have not done that because we are too fixated in looking at Iran and not the 10 horns. And you would think we should be looking at the 10 horns because the book of Revelation, or the angel told John the Revelator in the book of Revelation, I would show you the judgment of the whore that sits upon many waters. And the word means Persia was not mentioned. That's clear. Why was that not mentioned? Is it possible that ancient Babylon was destroyed by the Medes and that prophecy was unique to that event? But the same thing is going to happen, but there's going to be two different military attack, or two different races or nations are going to be attacking. The ancient Babylon was attacked by the Medes, this is well recorded. But the future Babylon is going to be attacked by the 10 horns. Because look at the language the Bible's saying here. So let's read this real quick.
All right. And just one more thing to bring out before we go further, Elder.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think just to throw the brothers at One West a bone, they could have also been paying attention to the stuff they was bringing out on the Discovery Channel back in the day, as far as Nostradamus and looking at the Mayans with the Mayan calendar, and knowing that the Mayans are our people as well. Just they went way off with what they decided to follow. So by them having an understanding, well, those are people too. You think they didn't know? So if they know 2000, the end of the world come, brother, we are on point. It'd be stuff like that.
Yeah, because I remember after the year 2000, there was some brothers that they started talking about, we were off 12 years because it's really the clock's supposed to go down at 2012. They did a movie about that, 2012. The Maya calendar ends at 2012. And so I remember after year 2000, that became as a possible explanation. But I left in 2001, so it wasn't like I was, I don't know what else got developed, because I was really disenfranchised with the church anyway. So, like I said, you're right. This is not an accusation, or this is not like a ha-ha moment. This is like for all of us, because I believe it too, right? Sometimes we have to re-examine these scriptures and perhaps, give doors open to be wrong. And I think the problem with this scenario is that religious leaders feel the pressure, or have the pressure that they need to be right about everything, or they need to give an answer to the congregation about everything. Or when they are talking about prophecy, or somebody asks them about prophecy, they have to come in as a sure leader and tell them this is how this is how it's going to go down, right? And I believe they feel threatened or so conscious if they say, well, I'm not 100% sure. I think it could be this, or it could be that, because of the fear that that person be like, I'm going to go to somebody else who's going to definitely know, right? I don't, I've never been that type of individual, because I never felt, and I just said this in the church when I was with GOCC, that an elder not knowing something about a biblical breakdown, or he's still looking into that, doesn't discredit his position in any way, shape, or form. Because his work speak for himself, right? So if an elder knows more usually than the congregation about a lot of things in regard to biblical understanding. That elder may not know everything, but they know more. So just because I don't know everything doesn't mean I'm not a legitimate elder, or I was not a legitimate elder, right? Or any other elder, right? Because the works speak for themselves. The fear comes in on some people that I feel that if they tell their congregation, I don't know, I think it could be A or B, that somebody else is going to come behind them, another leader, they're going to come across another church, tell them, I know it's not going to be A or B, it's going to be C. I definitely C. My final answer, definitely C, right? It's like, and I think people that are not sure about the future are attracted to people that are sure about the future, right? If I come to you and you're trying to get your life together, you're trying to figure out what life is all about, right? And I have figured out what life is all about. I'm telling you what life is all about. You're going to be attracted to that because that's what you're seeking. Confidence, insurance, that your purpose. You got a purpose. You got a plan. You're going forward. Like, I want to do that. Maybe I should do that. It's the same kind of psychological scenario that, and I could speak for experience because I used to be an elder, and I used to acknowledge that. I used to be self-aware of that subconscious thing. Like somebody's asking me a question, I gotta know, or I gotta act like I know what I'm talking about. I gotta proceed like I know what I'm talking about. And I knew about a lot of things, so sometimes a lot of questions that were asked I knew about, but some I didn't, and I was honest about it, or I believe I was, right? And all I'm saying is that I think it's time for us to re-examine these scriptures, because why are we ignoring Revelation 17 when it comes to America? We believe that America is Babylon. Why? Let's read this, right? Why is this important?
And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
So you would think, right? You would think this scripture would be more popular than Isaiah 13, because Revelation is revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ, right? This is the book of Revelation is kind of believed to be a continuation of the book of Daniel, all the other prophetic books. Like it's like the final step. Why are we not looking at these scriptures in a much higher light? Why are we focusing on Iran, when Iran is not mentioned in this particular chapter? And this chapter is started with, I'm going to show you how God is going to judge the great whore. Okay, let's pay attention. Right? Let's read.
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
Uh-huh.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
So we all understand that the red-colored beast is talking about Rome. In the book of Daniel, it talks about 4 visions that Daniel saw. One vision was Nebuchadnezzar. The other vision was the Persian Medes. The third was the Greek Antiochus Epiphanes and those guys. Alexander the Great from what that country they're from? Not Antiochus. Is that Antiochus? What's that country that Alexander came from? The Macedonians. No, the Macedonians. Yeah, because the Macedonians conquered the Greeks, and they kind of adopted the Greek language and culture.
Yeah.
They became, because that's the MO with Esau. He becomes who he conquers, and it's kind of brilliant because that plan is like, he's erasing as if there was any genocide. So if he wipes out the Egyptians and he becomes the Egyptian, he goes like, well, we're always the Egyptian. What genocide? What happened? What's wrong? He kind of like, there's a way to kind of erase what he did and kind of superimpose his identity into every racial group, right? So when people of color here in America complain about the Romans changing the color of Christ into a black man into a Roman man, as it was like a unique thing to attack Christianity, that is not necessarily true, because they did that with the Egyptian, the Antiochus Epiphany, not the Ptolemy. Is it Ptolemy that took over Egypt of the 4th century, I believe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it was Ptolemy.
They did the same thing to Egypt. They wiped out the royal family. They became the royal family. They married into the royal family and started putting their images as the royal family. So it was not because, the Romans, it's called like Romanizing the gods. It's like, in any god that used to look like, for instance, there was a god of Egypt that had a jackal head in Egypt, and that was their representation of that god. Romans took that same god and just changed their whole appearance. A white bearded god looking person. So they just changed their appearance, because what the Romans, they viewed, and especially after they conquer this, what was that, North Africa? Not the Tristans. What's Hannibal? What race is Hannibal? God, in North Africa. The Puritan Wars, I think it was. They began to write and believe that the gods favored them, and they are the best representation of the gods. So the Romans felt that how they look was the best human representation of a god or a demigod. So they used to say, okay, any god that we adopt, that we bring to Rome, that god is going to look like us. And that was not only with Christianity, that was with every religion they used to import to Rome. You could worship your God, but that guy has to look like us. That's why most gods and most, why do Jesus Christ now is portrayed with a long robe and a side robe, a reddish side robe, a tunic, or what have you? Why? Because that's how the Roman philosophers and religious priests used to dress like. Christ wasn't dressing like this when you go into the historical narrative, right? So I'm going somewhere else, but Rome is what we're talking about here in regards of the beast in which this woman is riding. So the woman is not the beast, but the woman is riding the beast, full of name of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns, which is the Roman Empire, right? So let's continue. I know I drifted somewhere else, but I'm back now, right? So let's continue verse 4, because this is the first time that the angel began to really give a detailed description of what's going to happen to this whore that sits upon many waters, right? Let's continue.
Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
Uh-huh.
And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
So, verse 4 is talking about how she was arrayed with purple. Purple was always considered a wealthy color because it was hard to obtain. I think the Philistine came up with that color, and there was a special plant or something that they used to crush and make the color purple. So that was usually associated with them, and so forth. So these are all royal associated colors. So this is talking about wealth and gold, right? And wealth and power. Now it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great. Mystery Babylon the Great. So notice it says Mystery Babylon the God. So it's a mystery. This whole thing is a mystery, right? But her title is Babylon the Great, meaning it's a land of confusion and it's a great land, right? The mother of harlots. Now, harlots, which is associated where worshiping other gods, right? Besides the God of Israel, right? Because he views that as idolatry or harem, a spiritual fornication or adultery, right? An abomination of the earth, right? So this is showing that Babylon is going to be great. There's going to be a mystery about it. It's going to be the mother, meaning she's the progenitor, the starter, the beginning of harlotry and abomination. And she's affecting the entire earth. That could only fit America. If it's somebody else, some people say this is a Catholic church. Okay, I would say a number two, a strong two. But I would say America more fits because it's a government structure. It's not only a religious institution. Although some people could say that the Vatican is kind of like they are their own kind of country. They got their own police, their own military, their own small country, which is their sovereign country. They're not part of Italy. They're their own sovereign place, right? So let's continue reading.
And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, the Messiah. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
Right. So the woman, not the beast here, although the beast in the book of Revelation, in the book of Daniel, talks about the four beasts that they're going to kill the saints and all of that. But this is specifically talking about America. It says, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, right? This is us, right? From our understanding, these are Blacks, Latino, Native American, indigenous people here in America who are the true biblical Hebrews from our perspective. And the saints is talking because the saints are a people. It's not like the Catholic Church, like you have to honor or you have to earn that term saints. You have to perform a miracle. You have to do this. That's all came later. The Bible used the word, the saints was always associated with the Hebrew Israelites, God's people, right? Gather my saints unto me, those that have done a burnt sacrifice. I think Psalms 50, right? And with the blood of the martyrs of Christ. Now, the martyrs, those are believing in Christ, right? And well, and when I saw her, I marveled with great admiration. So John the Revelator was confused. He was like, "Who is this woman?" And you got to remember, this is an added addition because the woman is not mentioned in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel mentioned the fourth beast, so Daniel was familiar with the fourth beast. Okay, I see the beast that she's writing. That's Rome. But who is this new woman? Writing Rome. That's very important because when you're writing a beast, the beast is serving you. The beast is working for you. You're guiding, right? You're going this way, right? You pull it, right? You're writing, so you kind of in control of it. So that's very important, right? Because we're going to go back to that. Let's continue. Verse 7.
And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns.
So now the angel is about to reveal to John the Revelator the mystery of the woman and the 10 horns, right? So we have to pay attention because this book is the final chapter of the prophetic prophecies mentioned in the Bible. It's taking all the prophecy from Isaiah, from Jeremiah, from Daniel, Ezekiel, and he's wrapping it all here because a lot of those prophecies is kind of retelling the same prophecy, the same, like in the book of Daniel, it's telling the same story or talking about the same four beasts. It's just every chapter is re-emphasizing it, right? So let's continue reading.
Verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world.
Uh-huh.
When they behold, the beast was that, and is not, and yet is.
And yet is, right? And I'm doing research on this because I think this could be talking about when John saw this, or this time period could have been during the time of the 1,000 years, because he could have been talking about the beast, which was, and it's not because it's in the bottomless pit, but it will be descending from the bottomless pit. This is like Christ took John into the future and began to give him the prophetic understanding on things that already happened. But he's talking to them as if it's going to happen, but it already happened. So, but that's a different conversation, right? Because I want to focus specifically today on the woman, right? So let's continue reading verse 9.
And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth.
Uh-huh.
And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space.
And I'm gonna do I'm doing more research to pinpoint the 5 that are fallen. Who were they? Right? Because the 5, and then the 1, that's 6, and then the one who's coming is 7. So this is going to the 7 heads. So I believe this is symbology here. This is, talking about, yes, Rome sits upon 7 mountains, but I don't believe that the 7 mountains or the 7 kings is talking about literally the 7 mountains. It's talking about, so I'm doing research on this to know for sure what it's talking about. And even once I know, I will not be for sure known that it's, unless the Most High reveals some new information, but what I got so far, right? But I don't want to focus on the 7 horns too much, because I want to focus on the woman today, right? Let's continue.
And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition.
You see that? So that's why there's a lot of heavy thing that I don't want to tap into right now, because I want to focus on the woman. But I'm doing research on what this means exactly, right? Because it's saying that the beast that is not, but it's kind of like giving you like 7 kingdoms or 7 kings or 7 individuals or government system that 5 has fallen. We have to identify who those 5, and then there's 1 that is present, and there's 1 that's coming, right? This is during the time of John receiving his revelation, right? So let's continue.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
And so this is where we have to, okay, so the 10 horns are 10 kings, right? They have not received their power, but they will for 1 hour, right? With the beast. So the beast represents what? The Rome. I saw the woman riding a scarlet color beast, right? So it looks like now, this is Rome, but what exactly is it? Are they going to team up with the Vatican? Is that Rome now? Ancient Rome, and is the 10 kings talking about the 10, the European Union, right? We're going to discuss that in the future because I think this is also important. But to wrap everything up nice and pretty in a nice bow, but right now I want to focus on the woman, right? Now this is important. Remember, he started in the beginning telling that I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters, right? And now this is what the angel's telling John the Revelator, right? Verse 9. That's where we left off?
Where we left off? No, it was further down.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, here we go. Verse 13.
These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
Unto the beast,
These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are
I'm sorry, finish your thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful.
So this is important. These shall make war with the Lamb. Who's the Lamb? Christ. So we do know that it's not the woman that's going to make war with the Lamb because she's going to be burned with fire, right? So we do know that the D's that he's talking about is the 10 horns, which would join their alliance with the beast. Right? So, and this is why I also believe that we have to be very careful about the mark of the beast. That may not happen in America. I'm doing more research. I don't want to focus too much on a lot of things, but it may happen in Europe when the 10 horns receive their power 1 hour with the beast. Because America's going to be destroyed. If we're going to agree that the 10 horns is talking about the European Union, and the woman is America, right? I'm not saying it's 100%, but what I'm reading, it may be that the mark of the beast could be implemented in Europe, and then from there through the rest of the world, but they must get rid of America because America is its competition, or America has there's a jealousy there because they never received their power. Because when you go into the history, right, France, Spain, and England, kind of the 3 horns that got plucked out, mentioned the book of Daniel, and a little horn came out, which is America. So I believe that Europe is upset that America is receiving all the power and glory, and they have to even ask America for help. That's why the whole thing with Donald Trump and the UN is not paying their fair share. We're paying the most of the stuff. We're writing you guys. You're taking care of you guys. We're working for us. So that language showed to me that America is more powerful than Europe combined, right? So there may be a double cross, and we could see the infant state of that division now with the Trump administration, because now, the Trump administration is talking about, European Union got to do their fair share. Oh, sorry, that's my friend. You gotta do your own thing. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. Let me just tell him I'm on the show. Okay, so good. You want to say something, brother?
I just wanted to bring out the fact that now I kind of see things a little bit differently, because if you think about Elder, and for those who watched last week, we had played a video of 2 gentlemen talking, and it was a man that was speaking about the 10 horns, and he was speaking about how both Vladimir Putin of Russia and Trump of America, the issue that they having with this power struggle is the fact that Trump doesn't mind being a part of this new world order, but he wants a bigger part of it. Right. That will get in the way of those families and what they're trying to do and usher in their God, which is Satan, who is ruling the world at the moment, to being able to fully do what he's trying to do. So what we've been reading plays right into that, where that man that spoke about saying how by America want to be a bigger part of it. If America plays a bigger part, America will be in the way,
Yeah.
and the great whore is going to keep doing what she's been doing.
Right.
So she has to get moved out. So the baby horns that never got power can
Yes.
finally get some power.
Right. And I think part of the reason why America has to be taken out of the way, I think the ideology of America of like freedom of speech, freedom of,
Right.
religion, freedom, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, they have to destroy all that because that's going to get in the way of their agenda, right?
Right.
They can't promote or institute a global dollar system, dollar, moneyless system, a mark of the beast type of system with the American spirit, right? And especially Trump, right? Because Trump,
Right.
he's not only a president, he's like a world celebrity, right? So now the talking points in America is like if there's any country there was a celebrity, America is it, right? If the country is concerned, because everybody's involved in people in Africa are talking about America and who's the new president and who's the new president of Uganda. I don't know who's the president of Egypt. I don't know, right? Uh, 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 uh. If Russia was having an election every 4 or 5 years, I would not know who's the president. Now I already know it's Putin because he's been there forever, right? Beijing,
Right.
he's been there forever in China, right? So I'm not involved with politics. We don't get in the Fox News or CNN. Oh, today Uganda's new president just won. They don't. We don't care. We don't really. That's not really news. But I'm pretty sure that our politics is news globally, right? So
Right.
that spirit has to be destroyed. I think that freedom, free, because the term liberalism and freedom came from the notion of being free from the church. Liberalism,
Right.
if you look at the etymology where it came from, where it was coined, it was we want to be liberated from the captive church, so to speak, or the Roman Catholic Church. So,
But George Washington said, "Give me liberty or give me death."
right. So that whole thing was let's get away from monarchs. And that's what America is kind of dangerous because every other country, not every other country, but that term of like election, pick your leaders, vote for your leaders in, that's fairly new as concept of government, world governance or governing a country. Most countries are governed by monarchs. The prince, I mean, we're going back, 4, 5, 600 years ago. That was the case. This country's only 250 years old. So the concept of democracy and freedom and First Amendment and God-given rights, it's a fairly new concept. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's a fairly new concept, right? So I think that concept needs to be destroyed, and they need to put in monarchs and put in, systems that are there to kind of protect the powerful and the rich and keep them there and keep the people, the peasants, in their lane, right? It's kind of like that whole thing, right? So why is this important, right? We just continue reading because remember, we read in the book of Isaiah that God has put in the minds of the means to do His will. I think we read that earlier, right? So
Right.
this is very similar language here, but is not mentioned the means, right? So let's continue. Where we left off.
15th verse.
15 verse. Okay.
All right. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
So this is what you consider a melting pot of different racial, ethnic people living together. So this whore sits among pearling waters, which is, the Statue of Liberty is kind of like they got the 10 horns. I mean the 7 horns. She's holding, or the 7 crowns. I think she's holding the torch and the 7 crowns, right? So a lot of people believe that this could be a symbolic spiritual gesture showing that America is Babylon, right? But in New York, and to go to and just to also mention, there is a doctrine out there that teaches that or believes that Babylon specifically is talking about New York City. And that's the city that's going to be destroyed. That's a doctrine. I don't know if you ever saw, what was that movie with Keanu Reeves? He was a lawyer. His father was the devil. What is that movie? It leaves me. But the mother was quoting a scripture in the Bible, but she was associating that scripture to New York, because New York is like a melting pot. It's a city that never sleeps. It's one of those things. The devil's advocate. There you go. See, I got some scholars here, man. Yeah, the devil's advocate. There you go. That's it, right? Good movie. I think people should watch it, and it's an interesting scenario. But this is talking about a melting pot that this woman, this city, this country, this government system will be populated by multiple racial groups, right? It's important because this is unique, because most nations have a racial group running it. China is run by Chinese. It's populated by Chinese. Yeah, you have foreigners, yes, but a high percentage is Chinese, and so forth, so on, right? In America, it's a mixture, right? Yes, the greatest number is European. I think 59 or 60%, depending on you change it. But then you got the other half is everybody else, and they're saying that this continues going to even be a more melting pot. And even white people are mixed, a melting pot themselves. They're not all pure blood anyway. So this is talking about a multiracial government system, right? Which fits America. Let's continue.
All right, and even that thing about America being 50-some% white is untrue. Back when I was in aviation school, this was back in, I would say, 2011. Dude Michael McCrae, he was in his 40s, so his mother had to be in her 60s plus. She worked at the Census Bureau in New York. She called him the day that me and him was riding, and she told him and said, "Baby, we ain't the minorities anymore." And he was like, "What you talking about?" She said, "Black people are not the minority race in America anymore, but they're going to keep telling you that we are only 14% because they know what'll happen if Black folks found out. If we matched them half and half, or if we was more, they know our mentality. Well, we'll be like, we ain't putting up with their crap no more."
Right.
So,
and I do believe that, and I gotta stop saying that, 59% or whatever, because that's the official number. But you are right. There are more than 14% Black people. I would say white people are within maybe 40%, and then everybody else, right? But that's a pretty, right? And I would double that number within the Black community. I would say 25%, not 14%.
yep.
In the Latino community, I would say maybe 30%, 35%. When you combine all the Latino, so you're right. We're proud, and I think you're right. That reminds me of a movie. I think it was called Ants. Remember that you had the big ants ruling the small ants,
Right.
and then the big ants, behind the small ants was talking and said, "Listen, don't tell these people that we are the minority here. There's more of them than us. If they ever find out." You guys remember that? I was like, and I was, I was a young man. I was like, that's some deep stuff. Are they trying to tell us something there? So I do believe that these sensories and these things do play a part in psychologically manipulating our worldview. Our worldview. Absolutely, I do agree. So let's continue reading.
All right. We had 16, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire."
Hate, it's a strong word, right? These will hate the whore. Why are they hating her? Why? Right? So this is a passionate, we have to get rid of these people. We have to get rid of this government system. The reasons we could speculate, but we do know that they hate her. And why do they hate her? Let's continue reading.
For God, the Most High, hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled.
So this is the reason why they hate her, because God has put it in their heart to hate her to fulfill his purpose and will. Right? In the same way, when we read Isaiah 13, right? 17. Read that again, brother, if you don't mind.
Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and far as gold, they shall not delight in it.
So in the new Babylon, in the future Babylon, the Most High will not stir up the Medes. He's going to stir up the 10 horns. So we don't have to look at the Medes. Now, can it be both? Yes. Meaning that Iran is going to be attacking and maybe the 10 horns is going to be behind it. Maybe. Or it could be that Iran is not even part of the destruction of Babylon, because the 10 horns are the ones in which God has stirred up their hearts, as heart in their hearts to hate the whore. And this is the blueprint that we have to now go by. Look at the relationship between Europe and America versus the relationship of Iran and America. Why? Because, take it or leave it, Donald Trump has done something pretty unconventional in regards of, presidents. He's standing up to Israel, the state of Israel. He doesn't want war, and he's serious about it. And I think on Thursday, I had I did a small conversation about Alex Jones predicting that the Iranian people are looking to get rid of their leadership, and they're communicating through the military, through Trump administration, to get rid of their leadership and establish a new leadership. And if that's true, and or even now, what is the mainstream narrative that Trump made peace with Iran, and he's pissed off at Israel, really, because he when he made the peace deal, he said, "Listen, in 12 hours we're going to stop. That's a deadline." And then Israel said, we're going to take this deadline and we're going to try to just bury Iran and throw everything at them because we got a deadline. And Donald Trump thought it was a disrespect, right? So if Donald Trump is successful and Iran does never become a threat, it could be the same thing that 10 years from now, 7 years from now, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, people could say, aha, you Hebrew Israelite that believe that Babylon is America and it's going to be destroyed by the Persians. Look at the Persians. They're cool with America, right? And let's say, Donald Trump goes there and there is some form of regime change, or there's some form of, even if that doesn't happen, that they work out a deal with the grand leader of Iran or whatever, and they shaking hands and doing photo ops. Like, this doesn't look like Iran is going to attack America anytime soon. And America is, the largest military force in the history of the world. I think Iran is rated either 15 or 14 or 16, one of those, in regards of the biggest military. So you got many countries that are bigger than Iran. Russia, China, right? I believe India has a bigger military, right? So then 14, 15, so America's on top. So there's 13 more countries greater than Iran. So, and I'm not saying it's possible. I'm not saying that I could be wrong that Iran is going to be involved, and that should be a sign they should look for. But I'm walking away from that as an absolute. I'm focusing on the 10 horns because that's the people in which the Book of Revelation says, "Hey, I'm going to tell you how the Most High is going to judge this great whore." And he's explained to them in detail, and the person the means are not even mentioned even once. But the 10 horns are. So I want to be looking at the 10 horns. Because Iran may be a side, it may be a distraction. Right?
Yeah.
So because even now, right, you people that believe or people that are misunderstanding the writings of Ezekiel 38 in the latter days, and I believe that's is going to happen in after the 1,000 years. And shout out to Brother Ra'ai from what is it? I'm sorry, we big from because when he was with GOCC, and I was with GOCC, he was looking into that, and he told me to look into that, and I kind of like said, you know what, you're right. And it's funny because I knew about that scripture for years, like, but sometimes it doesn't compute. It's like the Bible's weird that way, right? Or I'm weird that way, right? But most people are that sometimes, especially with the Bible, it's one of those things that you could read the Bible 1,000 times, 1,001, you get, some new revelation, right? So for reading a million times, 1,000,001, then you get like, oh, I never saw this before, but I read it 1,000,000 times, right? So it's one of those books. Now, this is important because he's saying that it starts with he that has an ear, let him hear, right? Where that statement starts, I think that's in here. He that has to hear. This is the mystery, right? And carrying the spirit around, and I check and fulfillment. I believe that's what it says. He that has an ear, let him hear, or let him understand. And maybe I'm parry. Oh yeah, here's the one. Verse 9. And here is the mind which have wisdom. Let me give this. Let me give you the BB Bible, which is the basic, right? Here is the mind which has wisdom, right? The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, right? So now it's giving you like, when the Bible says here, is wisdom or pay attention, basically, you should pay attention. So if it's telling you that Babylon is going to be destroyed by the 10 horns because God is going to put it in his heart to destroy her, right? Verse 16, and the 10 horns which you saw it, the beast, these will be turned against the evil woman and will make her waste and uncover, and will take her flesh from take her fish and food, and will have her burned with fire, because God has put it in their hearts to do his purpose, excuse me, and to be of one mind, meaning united. So if you one mind, that means you part of a collective, right? These are 10 kings that have not received their power yet, but will with 1 hour with the beast. And they hate the whore. Why we not focused on this? Why we only focus on Iran? Iran may not even be involved in the prophetic understanding. This may be a European against a European country. And the reason why I believe that may be is more, there's a bigger possibility that will happen. Who was fighting World War One? Who was involved in World War One, Brother Rick, if you know? Where they started?
Well, I don't know where it really started. I just know it was between families. There was all that wanted certain control and power.
And these families were African family, Middle Eastern family, Asian family?
There was all, what we call European, but they all
right. It was it was I think it was a fight with the communists in Russia and they killed the Tsar, and that kind of started a conflict with the Turkish, and then other people got involved. It was a European conflict, right? Well, we would say to that the world joined in, right?
Right.
World War II, where that started, Brother Ricky? Europe.
It started with Europe.
Germany, right, was fighting
Right.
against Russia. That was fighting against a land dispute. Berlin.
Germany was underneath a lot of oppression financially
Right.
and in every kind of way. So they
But
wanted
this
to
was
get
all what? European bankers? This is all Europeans, right?
yeah.
So what makes you think that we are going to go to War III over Iran? And they're not even second. There are 13, 14 different countries more powerful than them. I think it's going to be another European conflict. Now, Israel is a European country. I know they don't like to hear that, but it is. That could be involved, whatever. But let's all put aside all that. What does the Bible says? The 10 horns, God will put it in their hearts to fulfill His purpose. So, if you believe the 10 horns are the European Union, which I believe, if you believe America is Babylon, which I believe, why are we not looking at that relationship much closely? Right. So, let me look at and Brother Rick, do me a favor. If you look um top 10 military or top 20 military countries, or the top, I think England is like above Iran. You got France, right? You got Spain. They have a strong military. Matter of fact, Spain felt that they were so strong militarily speaking that they didn't want to join the NATO alliance that Trump, went there this past week, right? So,
Which
what came up?
United States number 1,
Uh huh.
Russia number 2,
Uh huh.
China number 3,
Uh huh.
India number 4,
Uh huh.
South Korea number 5,
Uh huh.
United Kingdom number 6, France number 7, Japan number 8, Turkey number 9, Italy number 10, Brazil number 11, Pakistan number 12, Indonesia number 13, Germany 14, Israel 15, and Iran 16.
Okay. So you have the United Kingdom above Iran, right?
Right.
You have what other European country you mentioned is above Iran? I think you mentioned France.
Yeah, we got United Kingdom,
Uh huh.
France,
Uh huh.
Italy,
Uh huh.
Germany,
Uh
and
huh.
then Israel itself over Iran.
Right, and then of course, and you also have Russia, right? So these are 6 European
Yeah.
countries. They are stronger than Iran, and if so, we have to look into that. That maybe there's going to be in the future, right? And maybe in the near future, because we could clearly see what's going on with Trump and the relationship with, they're good now, but there was some conflict there. In the future, there's going to be a greater alliance of European Union. And maybe you're right that this is the reason why they have to get rid of Trump, because he's kind of like wants a bigger piece of the pie. And like, no, so they have to kind of, and think in their mind, we just got to deal with this guy for 4 years. And then after that, we have to just get rid of or deal with the next guy. So, watch out for Vance, because he may be the next guy. I don't know if Donald Trump's going to know it. I don't know what's going to happen in 3.5 years or 3 years now, the next election. But he is a problem he is a monkey wrench to their problem to the program. But how long he's only going to be there for another 3 years. Things may change, right?
Right.
Verse 18, and the woman whom you saw is the great town, which is ruling over the kings of the earth. Who has the ability to do that, right? Because yes, Israel has a strong lobbyist system here in America. Some people say, well, Israel is controlling America. Yeah, but the fact that Donald Trump can stand up to them, and the fact that Donald Trump can stop, and he has threatened them he's going to stop any aid if they continue this war, is by definition showing that America is stronger than Israel, because Israel cannot survive without America. So who's really stronger? Strongest? Yeah, Israel has great lobbyists, but I think that is being now crippled down. All right, so I just wanted to kind of have this conversation, in regards of, and those that are listening, the link is below. If you guys want to, come in and see if there's something that interests you, but hold on, babe, do you have Jose's number? You don't have Jose's, right? Jose number. Jose, do you have his number? Oh, no, okay. I'm gonna text it to you. You can call him. 'Cause I think he called me. I think he may want to go to the thing tonight with Josh. Yeah. Okay. I'll text him. Okay. Um, yeah, my friend Joshua, he's performing tonight, and we're gonna support him. Joshua, he's the one that does the music for me, well, some of the music for me. Um, and we're having a little thing tonight at 8 o'clock, so we're gonna support him. He's gonna be in the Shrine. If you're in New York, come by. He's gonna be up there. I think he starts at 7. So this is not attacking anybody, because this is more a protection, or a warning. Let's take a second look. Let's make sure that we don't become the laughing stock, because um, I'm not going to mention any names out of respect of them, but there have been elders of church that have predicted certain people, certain presidents will be the last president. That didn't happen. Uh, and people could use that. So if Iran, those that believe that Iran is going to be the boogeyman, the sign that we have to look at, and I used to teach that. I said, when you start looking into conflict between America and Iran, that's the sign that maybe the end is near. I used to teach that and use that as a thumbprint of warning people when you see this. I think I was wrong. I think I was wrong with that one.
Hey, Elder, could
Yeah.
you drop the link again in the chat?
Oh yes, I can. Let me boom. So there it is. Okay. So, I should at least said, well, it could be Iran or the 10 horns, but I would say the 10 horns is probably the biggest sign you should look for, because I don't think Iran is powerful enough to be a threat in any way, shape, or form. And even if those that believe that Iran is going to do that say that America has to be reduced greatly in power, right, for them to even have the ability to do that. I would say if you can combine all the European countries, they have greater armies than Iran. That's a probably more probable scenario. If there is a united collective European country, or Europe becomes more like a united country versus a small countries, and then they go against America, that could probably be the prophecy that we're ignoring, that no one is paying attention. So let's bring in brother Daryl. Shalom, brothers. How we doing? What you got to add to this conversation? If I'm missing something, I'm onto something. If I'm missing, if I'm wrong about something, what say you?
Yeah, Shalom, brother. Shalom. Can y'all hear me?
Perfectly.
Loud and clear,
Okay,
brother.
cool. Now, I just want to say I appreciate you bringing this information out because, like you said, I'm a critical thinker. I pull in a lot of information from a lot of different sources, and I draw a conclusion. And I was kind of leaning toward, as you had said on the broadcast, going away from it. But I thought I was going crazy by myself because, and I have a conversation with Brother Ricky about certain things. And I was thinking, I'm like, am I going crazy about this thing? Or what I'm seeing is actually what I'm being led to believe, that we have to walk away from it.
Mm.
Um, and a couple points I want to bring out is, when I even looked at Iran's top missile capability based on kilometers, they can't even reach the US.
Right.
Even if you look at their top missiles, whatever they may have, it's only going to go but so far. And that means you got to bring in planes and so on and so on and so forth, just like, theoretically what we had to do, whether they did or did not,
Hmm.
to destroy whatever bases in nuclear capability they had.
Yeah.
They would have to do something like that.
Yeah.
The second point is back to your point about Alex Jones. He even said on his show that what we're seeing right now is all of the nations are fighting for a bigger role in the New World Order. So all of these nations are jockeying for position. And I even heard this some years ago, even with the politicians. They're jockeying and stepping on each other for their seat within their country, of being a part of the New World Order. They don't want to be, I guess, a part of the slave class
Yeah.
or the common person. They want to be the upper echelon and things like that. So that's what he was saying, that we see with all of these nations. Everybody's jockeying for their position as far as the New World Order. And I totally agree with you were saying about the U.S. Um, I think that the other nations are going to see that the U.S. is really getting in the way. And it's weird now. We went from war, to all of a sudden Trump is cutting deals with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He's brokering peace. He's brought up as, the Nobel Peace Prize and things like. It's real weird that the narrative changed so quickly.
So
So
quickly.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm keeping an eye on that. And the last point I want to bring out is that I did a little back history and back research from some sources. Apparently, the current Iranian government is not even of Persian descent. The ancient Persians, the ancient Medes, apparently they live in the southern part of Iran. So the northern part where the seat of government is, Tehran and all of that, these are what we see as the descendants of Muhammad, the Shia Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that the Bible is wrong. I think, like you said, we're looking at it wrong. So if we're
Right.
going to take the prophecy in Jeremiah and say, or even the one in Isaiah to say that the Medes are going to destroy Babylon, the Most High is not wrong. I think that prophecy did get fulfilled in the ancient times. And
Right.
then, as you're bringing out today, the new Babylon is going to get handled by
The 10 horns.
the 10 horns and things like that. Because
Right.
if we're looking at, or as I'm saying, if the Medes and the Persians aren't a part of the current government structure to carry out any type of military action, how can that prophecy be
Right.
fulfilled accurately according to the scriptures? If we
Right.
have a whole totally different race of people that are running Iran, somebody's wrong. I don't think the Most High is wrong. I know he ain't wrong.
Right.
I think what we're seeing is wrong.
Right.
And I think the missing piece, as far as Bible believers are concerned, is I think that we're missing understanding a little bit more of the enemy's playbook. Satan knows these scriptures better than us, and he's a master of deception. He's a master of theatrics. It's possible that he's causing events to occur, not organically, but in a deceptive type of way to throw everybody off.
Yeah.
So we're not really paying attention to the true things or seeing the true things to come to pass because he's too busy. Well, let me do this, let me do that, let me give him this, let me give him that. So we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Confusion is his biggest tool. If he can confuse the masses, the people, he got you.
Yeah.
Because outside of our community, like you said, the main Christian church, they're talking about Ezekiel 38. And I'm like, what are they talking about?
Right.
They're big on Ezekiel right now. A
Right.
lot of them are big on Ezekiel right now.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for Revelation
Mm-hmm.
even being a thing, no one will be able to argue against the Jewish people in regards of that, because if in the last day, if you remove the New Testament, you remove the book of Revelation, and someone would say Ezekiel is the fulfillment of Israel conflict with Iran and what's going
Mm-hmm.
on, you could say that makes sense. That makes
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? It doesn't, because and it always bothered me that I did not have an answer, or we could not have a explanation on. Okay, if there are scriptures that gives you the impression that Christ is going to deliver us while we're in the land of Israel. So if blacks and Latinos are over here in America, and yeah, there's some blacks and the Mona Israel, but it's a small group. The majority of the people that are running that country are Europeans, and they're the one they're claiming to be the children of Israel. Their being there helps their narrative of being the so-called children of Israel. Us being outside of the land of Israel doesn't help us dealing with those prophecies. And the reason why I'm thinking, and I'm doing more research, is that we have to be very careful about prophecy that is going to happen before the 1,000 years and after the 1,000 years. Because I believe sometimes we are misunderstanding the prophecy that's happening after the 1,000 years. Like I believe not only Ezekiel 38, but I think it's also Zechariah 14. I believe it's talking about after the 1,000 years. Because Satan is going to be loose a small season. So if he's going to be loose and deceive the nation, why would there not be prophetic revelation of the prophets telling the people of Israel what's going to happen after 1,000 years? But we're not knowing that, or they did not know that because they didn't have the understanding of the book of Revelation. So now we have to combine all of it. So sometimes we may read a scripture in the Old Testament or prophecy of the children of Israel that we were associated with now that is really going to take place 1,000 years from now, and we're conflating the two. So we have to just reshape everything and just consider everything, and especially with prophecy, because we could be wrong. And most people are wrong more than they're right when it comes to prophecy. If you look at the historical, all churches from the Roman Catholic Church had prophecy that comes to truth. They don't like to talk about it, right? Of course, we got the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They have come up with ideas of prophecy when Christ is going to come. All of them have failed. The Hebrew Israelites, everybody has failed with these prophecies. So now, looking back, I said we should be humbled. You come down. We should say, this is what I think is going to happen. And I think every religious leader should start using those words dealing with prophecy, because if they do an absolute, it could destroy lives. It could destroy lives and change lives. And, so it just, and pastors have to understand of the power of their words. Members listen to, some people believe that they are prophets, like from the Bible, from the old. This is prophet so-and-so. This is this power that comes with that. And it could damage people's lives, and we have to acknowledge it and have a conversation. And it just, I'm glad that you had this conversation, because you calling the show and telling me, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one. And I'm thinking the only thing. I'm like, maybe I'm onto something. And you're like, yeah, confirmation, right? And there's probably other people like, yeah, and now it becomes an idea, or it's out in the ether, right? So, guys, put this show viral, clip it, send it out, because in high points, because I think we have been distracted, in my opinion, on this Iran America conflict. Because even in the 90s, in the early 80s, it was always a thing. Because when I was in One West, there was teaching Iran is going to attack America. So it was always a thing. And since even Netanyahu goes back into 1970, going back to the 80s, he was always, every single time he had an opportunity, he had a mic, he was like, Israel's greatest threat is Iran, a nuclear Iran. He used to mention Iraq, but Iraq is no longer an issue because it's colonized now. It's run by America for the most part. So it's one of those things that if we keep, I think about it. Israel, look at the propaganda. I won't say look how things turned out. You could go back into the 90s. The Netanyahu was complaining about Iran nuclear capabilities should not be supported.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time, I remember in 9/11 when they were talking about Iran, everybody was like, "Yo, Iran is not Iraq, bro. Iran is different. It's a much larger landscape. The mountains hard to reach. It's gonna be hard for us to conquer and all that. Yada yada yada." I know that to be true, but I don't think America wants to really have no really strong interest in Iran necessarily. I think the bigger thing has been Israel antagonizing
Mm-hmm.
the conversation.
Right.
Fear mongering. Iran, nuclear. They can't have a bomb, bro. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
as human beings, and we are looking at the internet and looking at the television, and like I said, I could show you videos of going back in the days. It does psychologically say maybe Iran is a big boogeyman, and they're not really a big boogeyman. They've been put in a position of much more like harder to conquer, or harder, they're a threat. They're the 14th largest military, and we're number one. There's 13 more military. Israel's a bigger threat to us. They got nuclear, India, Israel, England, I believe France has, they're a bigger threat because they got nuclear capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Europe, I think, is the bigger threat because they're united and they have I think a military that could match ours, and they have interest in Europe. They're looking to do certain things in Europe that America is getting in the way. So you would think maybe we have to start looking at that conflict and walking away from Iran, or looking at that, because it's like looking at if America goes, to war with Sudan. Nobody's like, okay, we don't know who's going to win that. Give it a few weeks. America goes on with Korea, give it a few weeks, and I think Korea does have nuclear capabilities and so forth, so on.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. The landscape is so vastly. I mean, Iran, right, when they were shooting missiles, the reason why they were not all connecting is because not only Israel has like an Iron Dome of missile defense, but also Jordan was helping.
Yep.
And shooting something down. So that's only in the Middle East. So imagine if the Iranian had to throw a missile all the way from Iran. And they're like 170 different military bases around Iran.
Yeah.
It would never get here.
Yeah. That's what I was saying about the critical thinking. It's like I got to start looking into some critical thinking things. Like I don't think we're looking at this right.
They're
And
not
to
a
your
threat.
point, even Trump came out and said, he said, man, Iran, he said they're good business people. So I'm looking at this thing like this dude don't want to have no war with these guys over there. He's looking at continuing the business. We need their oil, their natural resources, their minerals. Right. And that's what I'm seeing him doing, cutting these deals with all these nations.
Right.
They're looking at resources. Let's cut deals for resources. Why would you go to war with a country that you are relying on their resources?
Right. That's why every expert that talks about military, what will happen if America goes to war with this country, that country, they always say that the only way it could be possible, there has to be some internal conflict within America for it to even be possible for this country to even have a fighting chance. There will have to be some cyber attacks. There will have to be some internal issues to weaken America, right? Because head to head, they won't be able to stand up to America.
Right.
So right now, I don't see Iran ever being a threat. And in the context in how we see the Bible, that they're going to dash the kids in pieces in the rocks. Right. They're going to rape the women. They're going to, you get what I'm saying? That is a invasion. Literal troops here. I don't see that happening.
Right.
They just captured the so-called sleeper cells within like a day.
Exactly.
They're like, come on, man. They knew who them people were. They caught them like that. I'm like, whoa, man.
Yeah. So it's just we may have to walk away from that.
Yeah.
Or at least start saying, well, I think the most important, because even let's just say there is a global conflict. would Iran attack America, or they'll be on the alliance, I guess, with Europe, right? If Europe's the 10 horns and they're going to burn the, if Iran is involved, yeah, but they're not going to be the leading, right? Because even with Gog and Magog, right, they have other nations, but they're the leaders. They're the one. They're like, yeah, let's all get together and kill Israel. Let's all attack Israel. They're the one that God is blaming. They're the one that God is highlighting. Other nations are being mentioned, but they're the people. So Iran could be involved. Who knows? In World War III, Iran could be one of the allies of America. And we're like, oh, well, this is not the end of the world because Iran is not, So
it happened before when we was so-called fighting against Russia. Iran was a pipeline for us to get, materials and things like that in. So I'm like, yeah, I agree with you.
Exactly.
And the thing about prophecy, Elder, is that prophecy doesn't necessarily be true until after all of the events have occurred. Like when the prophets of old, they spoke at that time, they were just words from this guy. When those things actually came to pass, then okay, boom, this
Right.
what he said actually came to pass.
Right. You have
So
to, you have to wait for the prophecy.
Yes.
Now, I think we have to prepare and watch and all that, but we cannot know for sure. So the way I kind of look at it, you have to kind of prepare for all cases scenario.
Yes.
Right. And so for someone, but you're right, you got to constantly be reading, and you always have to look at the Bible when you have an interpretation of a prophecy. You always got to challenge that. Keep challenging, keep poking, see what else, where else would I correct? Because once you do that, you realize how strong is your doctrine is or how weak it is.
Yeah.
Right? Listen to other people and why they believe you're wrong. I have heard that Babylon is Europe, it's Rome, it's the Catholic Church. I heard that Babylon in the book of Revelation is actually Iraq today. That's another, and I remember this. I remember it because actually in chapter 16 of the book of Revelations, right? It says that God will remember her sins. Like everything that happened in the Old Testament and in the prophecy hasn't been fulfilled. And this is talking about specifically of Iraq, which is ancient Babylon, right? Yeah, here goes. And a great town was cast into. There's a scripture that says that God has remembered her sin. I can't think of it. It doesn't come to mind. But and we also have to look at these seals as well, because I think these seals, there's some connection there as well. Let me get it real quick, but it goes back to, they were saying that the prophecy that that the Bible was talking about, the book of Isaiah, has not even been fulfilled to Babylon, ancient Iraq or modern Iraq. So, there's a lot of, I heard the Catholic Church is Babylon, the religion, right? I have heard, and like I said, they could be right as well. They have a good point. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't hit, because Babylon looks like it's like a governmental system. It kind of controls the world. It has, the world has drink of the wine of fornication. Yes, we could argue that Rome is kind of like responsible for spreading Christendom as we know it today. Yeah, because even though the Protestant is an offshoot of the Roman Catholic Church, right? Protestants were Romans before there were Protestants. Right. And they kind of continue the same tradition, Christmas, Easter. They just disagreed with the Pope being infallible. That was really the issue. Doctrinally speaking, and I think works. They said that Protestant, they're like, no work could save you. In the Catholic Church, you got to do works and the good works. And then the beef between Martin Luther and the Catholic Church at that time was that the good works in which the Catholic Church was saying was talking about penance, paying your sin away. You could pay if you commit a sin, you pay some money, some Hail Marys, you're good.
Right.
You was also paying for your dead relative. Hey, let me pay you this money for you could pray for Michael, to pray for my grandmother who passed, and so they were making a business. So those works in which that Martin Luther was criticizing the Roman Catholic Church, right? So that was a beef between Europeans, and that's what I'm saying. I think we that's their issues. But what I'm saying is, one could argue that abomination is the Roman Catholic Church. They are everywhere, right? There's Catholic Church in India, there's in Africa, and I was watching a documentary what is that country that were going to war? Donald Trump did another peace treaty with the Republican Congo. Yeah, and what was their neighbor? They were fighting for years. Rwanda.
Yeah.
There's Catholic Church there. There's mosque. There's freedom of religion there and things of that nature. But going back to you were saying that you're right. Trump is creating peace. Now we don't know what's going to happen after he's gone, right? But right now he's more like, let's make money. You can make money. I can make money. We all can make money. Let's just make money and stop fighting, because he's more like a businessman.
Yeah, businessman.
Right. Let's just build another Trump hotel in Africa. He just want to make this. Which is I get it. But we may have to start looking at the relationship in the deals. Like I think Trump just signed a few months ago the trade deal with Europe. We should read that. What that entails. What's going on? What is the potential problems that could occur in the future that will fulfill God's will, that they're going to hate the whore, right? They're probably going to feel that maybe Donald Trump double crossed them in this tariff deal, and they feel they're slighted. Where that hate is going to come from. Yeah, God is going to put in their heart, but something needs to happen here in this universe, in this ether, to make them feel we hate America. We have to get rid of them. What is it? We don't know. But we have, I think we have some time. I don't think we should panic. I think, and we have to also remember, America did not declare war on Iran, and Iran did not declare war on America. This was a conflict between Iran and Israel that America got involved and intervened, right? And I don't believe that Donald Trump, that the bombs that he threw were, I think he just did it to please Israel. I don't think Iran is a threat. I think that's been the propaganda that Netanyahu and Israel have been teaching and been promoting, and that's been in our mind, that they are a bigger threat to us, clearly us. And every American say Iran is not a threat to us. They're far away. Their missiles cannot reach us on time. That we will not be able to see it and interject. There's no way they're going to be able to infiltrate America to the point of invading, like the way we invaded Iraq, right?
And I don't think people know how missiles work either.
Right.
Like the missiles that are in the ground all have sensors on them. Them big old radars you see turning this stuff. Some of them are purely for detecting missiles and foreign things that shouldn't be flying in the air with a certain degree of equipment on it. Yeah. So it's going to be other countries that missile will fly over, and then they'll detect it, and it's going to shoot it out there anyway. So,
right. And that's the reason why America has all these military bases, to kind of, it's an extension of American military power. So if you got 2,000 troops in Iraq, right, and you got another 2,000 troops in India, you get what I'm saying? You already have invaded the world to some degree. Now they say we're here for peace purposes, but we all know it's like that movie in Star Wars when they introduced Plan 66, and then the stormtroopers turn on everybody. But why did they turn on everybody? Because the stormtroopers were everywhere militarily. That is what Rome did and put garrisons all over the world after they conquer different parts of the world to keep peace and order, it's kind of the same thing that America did, but they switched it and say, we're not here to keep peace and order, or because we're not a conquering thing. We're just here to help you military. And a lot of these military bases that are in these countries are there to train their military, supposedly, and strengthen their military. And sometimes a lot of these countries don't have a military like that. So kind of America is kind of like their protection. It's kind of like the thing, but it's like the mob. We protect you, but you got to pay me. Right? Same scenario. So when you slice it, dice it, flip it in every other way, in regards to how can in any possible universe can Iran win this war, I don't see it. If it's just solely Iran and America, right? All experts have to jump up hoops to say, well, there will have to be like a cyber attack and multiple sleeper cells in America. But even that, I mean, it's not. We're talking about, we're going to read the Bible. I read an invasion. When I read Isaiah 13, I'm reading an invasion of a country. I don't see that happen geopolitically anytime or ever where Iran and America. It's just, I don't see the scenario. Right. And so, but, anybody sees it different, please let me know, because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe something I didn't catch it, which is my perspective. But until then, I'm going to stick to my guns. I believe we should be looking at Europe and that conflict. Why? Both World War started because of Europe. So there's no reason to believe that the Third World War will not end up with some European conflict to some degree, and so forth, so on. Any last words before we end the show, brothers?
Brother Rainin Yasha'Allah brought up and said, Nephilim in Israel, David and Goliath, Elijah and the Syrian army, it may be done to make us be in awe. Meaning, for everybody to see that we think that maybe Iran ain't this powerhouse. Because if you're looking at a little dude and then you're looking at this big bodybuilder who do MMA, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, he finna mop the floor with this joker. This gonna be easy right here. And then next thing you know, this joker busts out and he fighting like Bruce Lee and he done took him down. Then it's gonna be like, oh shoot, I wasn't expecting that.
Right.
So
right.
That's a good point he made.
That is a good point, but that point could be made with America and any other country, because we're the strongest country in the world. So how can America beat against England? Well, I don't know. Let's see. Well, let's look at how big is the military. Every country, we could say, hey, we should never sleep on this country or that, India or China or Russia, right? Now, most experts have told me that if Russia and China team up, it may be a problem. Right. And if China and Russia team up and they have allies, that's going to be a problem. And most people say that the only way for America to lose, it has to be a united front, and America has to be isolated, meaning they cannot have any allies either. Right. But America has a lot of military around the world. Right. So,
right.
And it's I would like to ask, and maybe I will ask, what would happen? Who will win if it's America against the world? Who will be? Ricky, look that up. See if there's any articles. If America goes to war against the entire world, who will win? I'm just curious, right? Because and all the wars that started, all the world wars, specifically World War I, World War II, started because of conflict with Israel. When you look at the communist people that were credited for killing the czars of Russia were Jewish. Communism concept is a Jewish creation, right? World War II, what happened? Hitler kicked out all the Jewish bankers out of Germany. Right? The Jewish world declared war on Germany, and that's when the propaganda started that the Germans are a bunch of racist, neo-Nazis and all that wasn't true. Yeah, they were racist against Jewish people. They didn't like Jewish people, and they wrote about it. Hitler wrote about it. Man called My Struggle. He was saying, yeah, they're taking over the banks, and then they're bringing in all kinds of alternative lifestyles that we're not accustomed to. So they were clear about that. But I don't believe that there's any evidence that Hitler hated blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. Matter of fact, he wrote that the Japanese and the people from Asia have a greater history than Germans, and he was giving them accolades. And Germany had allies, and they were not all white. A lot of them were, the reason why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor because they were siding with Germany because there was something with America was attacking some interests of Germany, or attacking Germany, but that they also affected Japanese interests because Japan and America was doing deal, and I think there was it was all connected, right? But what was the problem? Because if the world would have left Germany alone, if the Jewish people would not have declared war against Germany in 1933, right? And that war was a propaganda war, right? It was a war of they start demonizing the German population to make them see it as a threat to the world that we have to take them down, right? And then when Berlin, not Ukraine, was it Berlin? I think Berlin was part of Germany. Russia took it back, and that was the whole conflict between where the war started, because Germany felt that Berlin belongs to them, because Berlin were ethnically Germans. They spoke German. They was just a land they had to give up in World War One, right? And and the Berlin people actually wanted to be Germans and wanted Germany to free them. So from the Berlin perspective, they feel that the Germany was liberating them from the communist Russia, which was run by Jewish people for the most part. Not all, but it was a Jewish concept, right? And the communists hated Hitler. But 2 world wars, the small hats were involved. So, and even if it goes down like Iran and America, like most people believe, who's really involved? Israel. Same thing. Why are we even there? Why are we in a conflict? Oh, Israel and Iran is a bomb. Netanyahu saying we got to take them down, right? It's all associated with the small hats, and that's why I believe also it is going to be World War III is going to be also the small hats are going to be involved something somehow, right? But I just hope this conversation. But go ahead, brother.
To attest the point that you were just making,
yes.
World War I ended November 11th, 1918.
Mm-hmm.
With saying that, if we look into Bibi, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, his real last name is Milikowski, is of Polish origin, likely derived from Polish word milik. They changed their name. Let me see. Yeah, what is it? His family changed their surname to Netanyahu when they immigrated to mandatory Palestine in 1920. Now, we must ask, what happened in 1920? While there was no direct conflict between the states of Palestine and Poland in the 1920s, there were connections and tensions related to Jewish immigration from Poland to Palestine and the burgeoning Zionist movement. So even in World War I, we're dealing with this Zionist thing.
Right.
So
and I think I think it was Poland, not was it Poland that I mentioned earlier? What was the country that that Hitler invaded? Well, history say invaded, but it was like a land he was grabbing back. I think it was Poland. But go ahead. I think I mentioned something else. But go ahead, Brother Ricky.
Yeah. So with that being said, it says within Poland, various Zionist parties and organizations were active with deferring approaches to Jewish life and statehood.
Right.
Um, so, and then the last thing, what was it? And then you asked far as articles, far as if China and Russia, I mean, as far as countries, if America was to go to war with the rest of the world,
Right.
AI says predicting the outcome of a hypothetical war is inherently speculative as many factors influence military conflicts. However, based on current military capabilities and historical trends, the United States would likely prevail in a conflict with most countries, though a war with a major nuclear power like China or Russia would be devastating for all involved.
Right. So it's like,
Because
no one could win that one because they're both,
right,
both countries are,
because
blowed up.
the other thing that they bring up is the fact that, yes, we may have, the best naval, air, and economic strength. The other factor, other than the nuclear waste that'll take place, is the issue of biological weapons, and that'll wipe out probably the whole world.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Is that even if you go all out, no one's gonna win. Everyone's gonna get hit. There's no winning in that because this is not talking about just troops, because usually military, the army will fight. Army's not supposed to target civilians' territory, cities. Only supposed to be like military bases. That's why it's illegal to put military bases near cities and where residential areas. They usually use a separate scenario. So I think we have to start looking at Europe more closely. What's going on there? The 10 horns, how it's being developed, what's going on, what are the laws? Because they're already following laws. I mean, they're already keeping, in Germany, you can't say certain things. In England, the people arresting people were saying things on the internet. So if that is already being practiced in Europe and accepted, people being arrested for saying, hate crimes, words, crimes, I don't know what you call them, right? Then if America's up the way, who's going to be the next people where they go to? Because even when even now when Donald Trump signed this peace deal between the Republican Tango and what's the other country? Rwanda. The delegates were there and they were like, "Thank you for Donald Trump's leadership and America's leadership. This is what we were waiting for. We just need somebody's help." So everybody looks towards America as the leader of the world to some degree. Who will be that if America falls? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it the European? Right? But I'm thinking that everybody is fighting for the top spot right now. Because they see that America is probably going to fall, or they're seeing the collapse of America in regards to now. I mean, because power sometimes is perception, right? The perception. It's like, you have a big guy and he's the bully of in the block. So somebody challenges him, and everybody says, "Yo, this guy's big." He's true. But then the small guy knocks out the big guy. And people are like, "Wow, I thought this dude was tougher." Yeah, he was tough and big, but sometimes people have a much greater perception of your abilities as a country, as an individual, as a family, as a country, whatever, right? Perception. So it's like, it was hard, but I didn't know it was that hard. I thought it would be harder, right? I caught him, with he stumbled and I tripped him and he fell and I didn't know. My perception was there was nothing I could do to this guy. So I think what's happening now is that people are now looking under the skirt of America and like, I'm seeing your nakedness. Like they're starting to shift the veil now. They're starting to say America's not as strong as we thought it was. And some experts are saying it is slowly collapsing as a superpower, not as a country. See, people need to understand the difference. A country, because Iraq is still around, but it's a mere shadow of itself before Saddam Hussein ruled it, right? What was the other country in North Africa with what's the guy that Gaddafi? What was that country?
Libya.
Libya. It's a former self of what it used to be. I mean, if you look at what Gaddafi used to do, a country, free education, free. If they didn't have the medical procedure in that country, they will fly out you if it's another country. So, Gaddafi was a good guy. He was just wanting to walk away from the global banking system and the European grip.
Mhm.
So, and don't get things twisted. It wasn't America, because America did not exist. That term colonialism really started from Europe, right? Going to Africa, going to India, going to the Middle East, and teaching, they were putting together the Catholic churches and teaching. You get what I'm saying? So it's not America we have to thank for that. It's Europe that colonized the entire world for the most part. That makes sense? Yeah, America came later. But if you go 400, 500, 600 years ago, if you speak to an African or an Indian or anybody in the Middle East or anybody in developing countries now, their biggest threat will be Europe. Rome, Italy, Spain, right? These were the big bad wolf back in the day. The people that people looked at as the leaders right? And Africa today is still trying to wean themselves out of colonialism and things of that nature, right?
Right.
But that's Europe. That's not America. So we have to just look at it from that perspective. That we probably need to start looking at the conflict, the relationship of Europe and America. And once we start seeing that collapsing more and more, then maybe that's what we should be looking for, rather than what's going on in Iran, because Iran is not, and like the brother said, the people that and not only they're not only Iranians by birth, the people in power, but there's some rumors that I have heard, especially within the Saudi Arabian family, which are not the Iranians, they are crypto Jews. So those supreme leader, he could be part of the thing. Like, hey, listen, we want to conquer Iran. This is Israel talking. We're gonna set you up, and we want you to antagonize and say, death to America, death to Israel, to give us the excuse to say you a threat. That could be all a plan,
Yep.
right? So we have to look at, and we may just be falling for the okie doke,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yo, Iran, I heard Iran is no joke, bro. I've been hearing that forever, but maybe that's part of the programming.
Mm-hmm.
Or to take away our eye, the 10 horns that's going to hate the whore and get her power, right? Because it says it's 10 kings that have not received power as yet, but will for 1 hour with the beast. They will hate the whore. I think we should start looking at that, and those are the things we have to start repeating. Because I think Iran, 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 you gotta look for Iran. Iran's coming, Iran, the big boogeyman, and we're ignoring the 10 horns that hate the whore, and will burn her with fire, and will have received power 1 hour, right? And that 1 hour, it says, I will protect you from that hour of temptation, says the Lord. So something's going on. We have to even look at that, what that really means, 1 hour, what that means, right? So I think we have to start looking more into Revelation in regards of that, Revelation 16, 17, 18, those three scriptures, and start looking at historically what these means versus looking at Isaiah, Jeremiah as the final thing we have to start looking at, because that may already been fulfilled, and which I believe it has. Yeah. So any last words, brother, before we end the show? And thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Just know that, the game of switching bait is an old game, but it is effective. So when they putting out in the media, putting on your internet feed certain things, dive deep and look what's going on behind the sheets. That's all I got.
Well, amen, brother. Don, so talk to me. Do you have a YouTube channel or something you're promoting
Oh,
in
no,
particular? Or
no,
you
no,
just,
sir.
yeah,
I'm going back through history. I'm like you said, I'm revisiting and re-examining everything. Picking out, the lies, kicking the bones out. To your point, I definitely believe that Europe, once they spot back, up until before America became a superpower, Europe was the place. Everything came out of Europe. So why wouldn't Europe want they spot back and get rid of
right.
Babylon or America being the go-to person for everything in the modern day world? And to brother Ricky's point, and it came across my mind too, while they're showing us Iran, what was happening behind the curtain? What was they showing us? And the real magic was happening somewhere else. So that's something that definitely has to be looked at now, that I guess the dust has settled with this whole Iran thing. But that's all I got to add.
Well, amen, amen. Well, thank you, brothers, for joining. Thank you for those that are listening. I hope this kind of opens the door for greater conversation, because I think the world is being, I think, deceived, with Ezekiel 38, and also, Isaiah 13 in regards of the means. I think that prophecy already came to pass. If I'm wrong, please, maybe send me an email and let me know where I got it wrong, because, sharp iron sharpens iron. And if you prove me wrong, I love that, because now I'm not teaching something wrong. I'm teaching something right. So I'm not proud to be, I can learn. I'm constantly a student. But I just want to kind of put this in the ether, and hopefully that these other religious leaders look at this conversation and don't take this as a threat, or take this as a somehow we're criticizing you, or what have you. You want to buckle down? No, brother, Iran is going to take America, and that's it. That ego could kill you. Pride comes before the fall. So just look at it, consider it. It's a possibility. It's a plan B. I'm right now. I have the 10 horns is plan A, and Iran is probably plan. I would probably maybe C right now. It just doesn't compute in every sense of the word. But if I'm wrong, let me know. So until next time, may the Most High keep you and watch you. And remember, Christ is King. Shalom.